And welcome to this segment of One-on-One. I'm Public Information Officer Joe Pyritz, and I'm joined today by our new assessor by the name of Douglas Wolf. Doug, thank you again for joining us here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Joe.
Good. Let's talk a little bit about the background of Douglas Wolf and how he got into politics, how he became the assessor, and some things like that. Get the people a chance to know you.
Well, actually, I started in politics in 1978 in Minnesota as a college student. I was the state-wide coordinator for the United States Senate campaign, and just became an activist, and we won the race against overwhelming odds. We upset a very popular senator, and I was hooked. And after that race is over and I graduated from college, I went to work for my local congressman, a guy named Arlen Erdahl. Did that for a couple of years, and then he got redistricted out of his seat. They put two Republicans in the same seat, so he wasn't the winner of the race in the primary. So at that point, I was kind of like deciding, do I go on politically in Minnesota, or do I get out of the cold country? And my wife and I decided we'd go for the warm weather. So we moved to San Diego, California. And I always tell people, when you move to California, you get two things when you get your driver's license. Most states, they hand you a voter registration form, but in California, everybody gets an application to get their real estate license, because everybody in California has a real estate license. I filled mine out, and I actually got licensed to be a realtor, and worked for a couple software companies at that time. There was a lot of funding for startups, venture capital, that sort of thing, and the three of them I worked for all went broke. They spent the money, and then it was just one of those things where it was a crapshoot. And after the third one, I decided I might as well go broke on my own if I was going to. So I started doing real estate, and I started doing technology consulting for sales teams, setting up sales forces for automation to automate their processes and so forth. It was still in its infancy back then, but I became very well known because I wrote a couple books on the product. Third-party books, the dummy style books. The software was called ACT. And so I got well known and got a lot of business out of it, obviously because you wrote the books. People think you're the expert, right? Well, technology and real estate worked well together as a self-employed person, because real estate has a tendency to have its cycles, as we all know, at this 2013 here in Pinal County. We're still on we finally start to turn the curve. We're heading the other side of we're going towards the upward slope. So I would use those to counterbalance in my career when real estate was real busy, and I'd spend more time on that and so on. So raised our children. Now we have a couple kids. They're still in San Diego. My mom is there and so forth. And over the course of that time, the software that I supported was, the headquarters were in Phoenix. So I was over here frequently, a couple times a year for conferences and updates on the software and so on. So I got to know Arizona very well and really liked it because of the attitude of the folks here. They're more Republican, conservative, libertarian types, which fits my way of seeing the world. And San Diego and California kept going the other way and running themselves into terrible financial trouble. So as time evolved, my wife and I got more and more disenchanted with California. But you want to be around your family and all that, but it was like they were just taking more and more of our money, and I really just didn't like it. And you have two choices in life. Then you can say, well, I'll just put up with it, or I can move. And so we thought about moving, and after a period of contemplation and talking it over, we had some rental properties in Maricopa and did fairly well with those. Sold them at 2005. We got out at the right time.
Exactly, you got out right at the right time.
Yeah, but had made that connection, and so we decided that, well, let's find something in Arizona, and we were fortunate that we found something in Johnson Ranch, which is Santan Valley, and fairly inexpensively because we bought based on the cycle. And so at that point then I started thinking, all right, what am I going to do next? And I had a couple of companies. I was doing some web store sales for them, had my own things going, still doing a little bit of ACT consulting, and my wife works full-time remotely for a company, so I was able, a lot of freedom. So I started going to the political meetings here in Pinal County and looked at what was happening as far as the demographics of the county, and I had no idea of running for office. I hadn't done anything for almost 20-some years since I had worked for that congressman. I was an activist and I volunteered and all this, but never had any ideas of running. And at that point then I decided, well, geez, the assessor's job is coming open because Paul Larkin was retiring. I knew a lot about real estate. I knew quite a bit about technology, which is really the two things that the office is focused on. And decided to run, and I won my primary and then won the general election. And so here I am, a fairly newcomer to Pinal County, but not really to Arizona.
So that's very interesting. You talk about technology and the fact that real estate. With the assessor's office, it deals a lot in the GPS, if I'm correct on that.
Well, our job is to locate, classify, and value property. So the GPS is an adjunct to our process. Before we had GPS, we still do the same things, go out and look at properties, see if they have a pool, and all the new properties that go up, residential, commercial, and so forth. And we come up with a valuation. We aggregate all that data based on the rules that the Department of Real Estate gives us, and we had that valuation over to the county board about February, like we did, or January maybe it was this year, end of January. And that says, all right, this is how much property valuation you have in the county. At that point, it's up to the Board of Supervisors through their budget process and setting the rate and the value, the levy limit, what they're going to actually burden the taxpayers with to pay for. So that's what the job does. So it involves knowing real estate for valuation and having a database of all those values, and that's the technology side.
Now, Doug, do you feel with the rules that the state passes on to the assessor, because a lot of the stuff that you can do is valued on what the state values the property as at times. Am I correct in saying that?
Well, what the Department of Revenue does is it promulgates all the regulations by which you shall value. So we use a framework that's in the Arizona statutes and by judicial processes or decisions that have come down over the years. We have to follow those guidelines. So the Department of Revenue is kind of the overseer. They used to be more involved, but 7 or 8 years ago they pushed a lot of the stuff out to the counties. And so we are an extension of the DOR technically. So yes, to answer your question, is we don't interact with them so much like the day-to-day they're telling us what to do. We use them more as a resource for, okay, is it okay to do this? For instance, railroads, utilities, large entities, those are all valued up by the Department of Revenue. We don't do those. My property is valued by the Department of Revenue because I'm the elected official, so they take that away from my department to avoid any conflict of interest. So those things are how they fit into the process, and they give us education. They train our appraisers on how to value property based on the rules and regulations that they've set forth over the years.
Okay, so a little over 5 months into your term right now.
Yes, sir.
How do you like it?
Well, there's good and bad with every situation. What I like very much is the ability to get out and help Pinal County create jobs. We're working very hard on trying to create an environment where we can keep the property taxes low and encourage, grow our top line, get some businesses into Pinal County. And there's a couple issues currently now that our office has advocated on, like the Red Rock switching yard for the Union Pacific. The governor came out and said adding that down there would decrease property values in that area, which I thought was complete nonsense, and I said so, and I'll say it here again. We firmly believe that having that switching yard, which will give us like 300 jobs and all kinds of tax revenue and so forth, will increase the valuations around there with warehousing and shipping facilities and all the adjunct things. Plus the Pinal Air Park is close by, and we're trying to work through the process with the contract with that, so we're involved in those things. So those things are great. There is the newness to the bureaucracy that I'm experiencing, that I have to learn that there are things you do differently in the private sector that you can't do in the public sector, usually in a timely fashion. Things take longer, and there's more T's to cross and I's to dot. But all in all, it's been a positive experience, and I'm enjoying it day to day.
Well, I've noticed that you've had several meetings with your staff. You get them all together, and you give an idea what's happening in the department. The staff you got, I bet you they're some of the top-notch people you have in the...
Well, we have a very good staff. With any business, usually 90-95% of your people are going to be pretty good if they're doing their job, and they have been. There's some folks that maybe are ready to move on, but for the most part, they have done a great job as far as getting what needs to be done. And what I've tried to add is a sense of teamwork, and so that there's cross-fertilization within the department so other people know what everybody's doing. The staff is 58 folks, so on the day-to-day basis, they don't interface very often. We have the appraisers, and we have our draftsmen, our draftspeople, I should say, and then we have our customer service. So by having an all-hands meeting, we call it, they get a chance to interact a little bit and see, hey, what are they doing over there and what's new in the county, and so that's been a very positive thing, and they seem to enjoy it. Everybody shows up every time we have one, and I have not even given free donuts yet, so I must be doing something right.
Soon, free donuts.
Free
soon.
donuts, yes, soon, yes.
Let me ask you about your radio show. You have a radio show that's on
KQCK Live.
Yes, and talk a little bit about that, when people can listen to it, and what kind of topics you cover on that.
Well, we call it Pinal Power Players, and I started before I was elected. And the idea is it's a kind of a community service show. What we try to do is get on people like yourself who are high stature in the county, Congress people, members of the Board of Supervisors, just the folks that have that the public doesn't really get a chance to interact with on a regular basis, mayors perhaps, activists of any sort. And it's on Thursdays at 1 o'clock, and it's internet-based. So, and it's video and audio. So you can go back and replay it anytime you want. So if you miss it, you can go to the website and get the archive. But the idea is to, and I act as the host, and is just to get information out to the public and have people call in. It's a call-in show. They can call and complain about the dog barking next door if they're a supervisor or whatever it might be. But just to push the government to the people, in the sense that, oh, I know who that person is. Like they're real. I can actually interact with them on a regular basis. A lot of the folks who are not politically active, doing their day-to-day lives, worrying about their kids and their jobs and that sort of thing, don't see county government or even government at all very accessible. And I'm trying to, not only through my office, but through this radio program, to bring that closer to the folks.
Do you notice that a lot of people within Pinal County are maybe a little apathetic towards politics?
No, I don't think they're apathetic. I think where I live, Santan Valley, we have a lot of young families. And my impression there is those folks, they have to drive out of the county for work. And then they got to drive back in. So by the time it's 6:30, 7 o'clock, they get back from work. They got to have dinner with their families, and they're shot for the night. We have very high turnout rates though for voters in this county. So yes, they may not go to meetings and they may not be real active that way, but as far as turnout for voters, I think we have a pretty good county. Saddlebrook's very active, as you know, a lot of retired folks. Affluent community, they're very busy. Gold Canyon, a lot of people out. Apache Junction gets a lot of people out. It just kind of depends where you are in the county. Maricopa is another one. Bedroom community, doesn't, you don't get a lot of folks out, but they all vote.
Let's switch gears here. Let's talk a little bit about property valuations coming up in the 2013 year. And where do you see it going 2014, 2015?
Well, I think it's going to be very positive in the sense that people's valuations have already started to creep back up. We've seen in our office year to year, first quarter 2012 to 2013, we had about a 22% increase in valuations. Now, of course, it started way down pretty low off the highs that we had in 2008, 2009, or thereabouts. But real estate has, under normal circumstances, and you could say 2008 with the financial collapse was not normal, it was extreme, but it's about a 14-year cycle, 7 years peak to peak. So if we bottom, and you can pick an arbitrary date, but let's say January of 2008, somewhere in there. Add 7 to that, we're going to be we're heading up. Here we're in 13, and we can already see it going the other way. So we're going to have because property taxes, the way the valuation done, is about 2 years in arrears, which is confusing to people. I understand, and I didn't understand it all when I started looking at it. It's like, why do they do it this way? But the valuations that we gave the Board of Supervisors this January is based largely on the valuations from June of 2012. So, about 18 months behind, give or take. We were still kind of in a downward trend in 2012, but it started to turn last fall. So now when we go around another cycle, it'll be from June of this year, so we should have a little increase. Now, that doesn't mean your property taxes are going to go up just because the valuation goes up. We get a lot of calls about that. Yeah. And the fact is, the valuations are what they are, But it depends on what the board sets as the levy and then the rate, and we have nothing to do with that. We don't do anything. We just do the valuations. So your taxes could go up. It all depends on this board of supervisors, and of course there's the other layer of things. And we just had the meeting this week with CAC raising the special districts. So if you're in a water district or a fire district, school district bonds, they sometimes will make up those special districts 50% of your tax bill.
In fact, one thing we looked at was with everything up in apparently AJ, there's actually, Pinal County is about 28% of the tax bill in many areas. And I mean, a lot of people don't realize that. They think all the money comes to us, which it does, but we met it out to the other entities.
Yeah, if for instance CAC, which is the community college, if they pass their increase they are proposing, that's a board of 5 or 6 people. And all they do is send that on to the county, to the treasurer, and it gets added onto the tax billing. Nobody here at the county level has to say yes or no. It has to, by law, go on the tax bill. The only way, if people want to protest it or keep it decreased or whatever you want to do, is you have to go to the meetings of the CAC board and your fire district board, your school board, if you want to have a voice in those situations. If you don't, then it goes as passed and it gets added to your tax bill.
Okay, one final question here as we wrap this up. Take a look at yourself in 2016. What would you see as making marked improvement inside the assessor's office? What is the bar you set for yourself?
Well, I think there's a couple things we want to be able to do. We want to upgrade our website so that we reduce the number of people appealing their valuations. And the reason we want to do that is not that they don't have the right to, it's that under the law they do, but a lot of times people send in requests for changes to their valuations that are not material changes. In other words, it might change their valuation from 100,000 to 98, but that won't change any, it doesn't make any real difference in their tax billing. Or B, they just don't realize that about 20%, give or take, of the transactions that happen in real estate, particularly residential, are not gone through the MLS. So a real estate agent may be thinking, I'm helping Joe out here, give him all these comparable sales, and that may be what they have, but another 20% are out there that are private transactions or didn't go through their system, which will change the valuation notices. And so that's one thing, we want to get that information out to the public. Secondly, we want to make sure that we're doing a good job and in some areas of the county where the land valuations and the improvement valuations are in line with what the expectations should be. There's some areas that we're working on there. That will be a big thing if we get that right. And lastly, we're making an effort to make sure that everything is classified properly. That means if it's agriculture, it's agriculture. If it's grazing, it's grazing. If it's whatever it is, we think there's an area out there that needs to be explored. I asked the board for some additional staffing, and they did grant that to me for the next fiscal year. So we're going to go that after aggressively. And then if those things are all in place, then we'll get our drone program going so we just fly over properties and do it that way.
Okay. You hear a buzzing, it's not necessarily the bad guys, it's going to be this guy looking at your property. Yeah. So, Doug, thank you very much for your time. And he's going to also work on bringing extra businesses here through any chances he gets. And again, he's been very active with the Republican Party and also very active in advocating for businesses coming through.
Great jobs make for a great county, a great place to live, and lower property taxes, and that's what we're after.
Exactly, and a great place to play, too.
There you go.
All right, Doug, thank you for
joining
us.
My pleasure.
This has been One on One. I'm Joe Pyritz, along with our assessor, Doug Wolf. Thanks for joining us.